So, for those of you who missed last night's tale, what's happened is, at the court of King Arthur, a damsel has turned up with a sword around her neck that she claimed only the truest knight in the realm could remove. Arthur tried to remove it and he could not. Arthur's Knights of the Round Table tried to remove it and each one of them failed. And then a prisoner that Arthur had taken, Sir Balin, a knight that he thought of ill repute, tried to remove the sword and did so with ease. Upon this, it was decided that Sir Balin was the truest knight of all the realm. Sir Balin now made one of Arthur's company, the Lady of the Lake, who once gave Arthur Excalibur, turned up at the court. Now when the Lady of the Lake gave Sir Arthur Excalibur, she said that one day she would ask Arthur for a favour in return. Arriving in the court, she asked for either the head of the woman who arrived with the sword, or the head of Balin, the good knight. Now Balin, upon seeing this Lady of the Lake, slew her, lopped her head clean off in view of the entire court. Arthur, offended at this, threw Balin out. Balin tried to protest the fact that this woman was actually responsible for the death of a member of Balin's family, and that she was a sorceress using tricks and deception and ill will to control people, and that by killing her he'd been doing Arthur a favour. But Arthur, who had taken this woman as a guest into his court, would have none of it. He exiled Balin from the kingdom. Balin, wanting to get back in Arthur's good graces, has decided that he will go to North Wales and find King Arthur's enemy, King Rience. And there, in North Wales, Balin will slay King Rience or take him prisoner, and in doing so, win the good graces of Arthur again. Arthur, however, does not know that Sir Balin is planning to do this, and one of Arthur's knights, Sir Lancelot, who was offended by the fact that he could not remove the sword, has decided to chase after Balin on horseback so that he can fight Sir Balin and prove himself to be a truer knight. And if all this wasn't enough, as Sir Lancelot hunts down Sir Balin, Merlin appears in the court with an explanation of why a damsel appeared with the sword around her neck, and a suggestion that perhaps this woman was not all that she first claimed to be. In the meanwhile came Merlin unto the court of King Arthur, and there was told him the adventure of the sword and the death of the Lady of the Lake. Now shall I say to you, said Merlin, that this damsel that here standeth, that brought the sword unto your court, I know the cause of her coming. She is the falsest damsel that ever lived. Say not so, they cried. She hath a brother, a passing good knight of prowess, and a full true man. And this damsel loved another knight that held her to paramour. And this good knight, her brother, met with the knight that held her unto paramour, and slew him by force of his hands. And when this false damsel understood this, she went to the Lady of the Lake, and besought her to help and to be avenged against her own brother. And so, this lady, the Lady of Avalon, gave her this sword that she brought with her today, and she said that no man could pull it from its sheath unless he were one of the best knights of this realm, and that he should be hard and full of prowess, and that this sword should be used to slay her brother. This was the cause that the damsel came into this court. I know it as well as ye. Would God she had not come into this court, but she came never in fellowship of worship or to do good, only great harm. And that knight that hath achieved the sword shall be destroyed by that sword. For it shall do great damage, for there liveth not a knight of more prowess than he is. And he shall do unto you, my lord Arthur, great honour and kindness. And it is a great pity he shall not endure but a while, for of his strength and hardiness I know of no match living. And so the knight of Ireland armed him at all points, and dressed his shield on his shoulder, and mounted upon horseback, and took his spear in his hand, and rode after a great pace, as much as his horse might go. And within a little space on a mountain he had sight of Balin, and with a loud voice he cried, Abide, knight, for ye shall abide whether ye will or not, and the shield that is to fore you shall not help. When Balin heard the noise, he turned his horse fiercely, and said, Fair knight, what will ye with me? Will you joust with me? Yea, said the Irish knight, therefore I come after you. For adventure, said Balin, it had been better to have holden you at home, for many a man weeneth to put his enemy to rebuke, and oft it falleth to himself. Of what court be ye sent from? Said Balin. I am come from the court of King Arthur, said the knight of Ireland, that come hither for to revenge this, despite ye this day, for the thing that you did for King Arthur and his court. Well, said Balin, I see well I must have ado with you, that my forsakenneth for to grieve King Arthur, or any of his court. And your quarrel is full and simple. Said Balin, Unto me, for the lady that is dead did me great damage. What else would I have been loth, as any knight that liveth for to slay a lady? Make you ready, said the knight Lancelot, and dress you unto me, for that one shall abide in the field. Then they took their spears and came together as much as their horses might drive, and the Irish knight smote Balin on the shield, that all went shivers to his spear, and Balin hit him through the shield, and the hauberk perished, and so pierced through his body and the horse's crew. And the nun turned his horse fiercely, and drew out his sword, and wist not that he had slain him, and then he saw him lie as a dead corpse. Chapter 6, our final chapter of the evening. How a damsel, which was love to Lancelot, slew herself for love, and how Balin met with his brother Balin. Then he looked by him, and was ware of a damsel that came riding full fast as the horse might ride on a fair palfrey. And when she espied that Lancelot was slain, she made sorrow out of measure, and said, O Balin, 2 bodies thou hast slain, and 1 heart, and 2 hearts in 1 body, and 2 souls thou hast lost. And therewith she took the sword from her love that lay dead, and fell to the ground in a swoon. And when she arose, she made great due out of measure, the which sorrow grieved Balin passingly sore. And he went unto her, for to have taken the sword out of her hand, but she held it so fast he might not take it out of her hand unless he should hurt her. And suddenly she set the pommel to the ground, and wove herself through the body. When Balin espied her deeds, he was passing heavy in his heart, and ashamed that so fair a damsel had destroyed herself for the love of his death. Alas, said Balin, me repenteth sore the death of this knight, for the love of this damsel, for there was much true love between them both, and for sorrow he might not longer behold him, but turned his horse and looked toward a great forest, and there he was ware by the arms of his brother Balin. And when they were met, they put off their helms and kissed together, and wept for joy and pity. Then Balan said, I little weened to have met with you at this sudden adventure. I am right glad of your deliverance out of your dolorous imprisonment, for a man told me in the castle of 4 stones that you were delivered, and that man had seen you in the court of King Arthur, and therefore I came hither into this country, for here I supposed to find you. Anon the knight Balin told his brother of his adventure of the sword, and of the death of the Lady of the Lake, and how King Arthur was displeased with him. Wherefore he sent this knight after me that lieth here dead, and the death of this damsel grieveth me sore. So doth it me, said Balin, but ye must take the adventure that God will ordain you. Truly, said Balin, I am right heavy that my lord Arthur is displeased with me, for he is the most worshipful knight that reigneth now on earth, and his love will I get, or else I will put my life in adventure, for the King Rience lieth at siege at Castle Terrible, and thither will we draw in all haste, to prove our worship and prowess upon him. I will well, said Balin, that we do, and we will help each other, as brethren ought to do. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen, another tale told. Sir Balin, leaving the court of King Arthur, was chased by Sir Lancelot. Sir Lancelot, upon reaching Balin, did great joust with him, but ultimately fell to the ground dead. And for the damsel that came by Sir Balin's side, death fell upon her also, for she could go on no further. And now the grieving Balin and his brother Balin ride to North Wales to face King Rience, enemy of King Arthur, and do great battle against him, and so once again win back the favour of Arthur.